The sound of skin meeting skin cracked through the living room like thunder. And for a second, Tamara couldn't see anything but white spots dancing in front of her eyes. Her cheek was on fire, throbbing with a pain that made her stomach turn. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part? Her husband, her own husband, didn't even look up from his phone. Jerome just kept scrolling, probably texting her again, while his mama stood over Tamara like she was dirt on the bottom of her shoe. Tamara was 7 months pregnant. 7 months. And she'd been working as a maid in this house for the past 4 months. The same house she'd secretly bought 3 weeks ago for $42 million cash. The same house where Jerome was planning to marry his side piece, Simone, next Saturday. The same house that used to belong to Tamara's family before these people stole everything from her when she was just 11 years old. But before we get into how Tamara got her revenge on the family that destroyed her life, do me a favor real quick. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story is about to get wild. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I want to know who's rocking with me. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, the slap that changed everything. Jerome's mama, Vanessa, raised her hand again. "You're slow, lazy, and worthless," she hissed, her breath hot with the smell of expensive wine. "That baby probably ain't even my son's." Tamara's hands instinctively went to her belly, protecting the little girl growing inside her. The baby kicked hard, like she could feel her mama's anger, her mama's hurt. "I want you to scrub every bathroom in this house before Simone's family gets here tomorrow," Vanessa continued, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "And if I see one spot, one fingerprint, you sleeping outside. Pregnant or not, I don't care." Jerome finally looked up, but not to defend his wife, not to tell his mama to back off. "Make sure you use the good towels for Simone's people," he said, his voice flat, emotionless. "Not those cheap ones you've been using." Tamara wanted to laugh. She wanted to scream. Because of those cheap towels? She could buy 100,000 of them and not even notice the money missing from her account. See, what Jerome and his family didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Tamara wasn't just some broke girl from the neighborhood who got lucky marrying into the Bradford family. Tamara was a Hayes. And if you knew anything about Atlanta's old money, you knew the Hayes family built half the city. Her great-grandfather started with 2 corner stores in the West End and turned that into a real estate empire that stretched from Georgia to Texas. By the time Tamara's grandfather took over, the Hayes family was worth billions. Not millions, billions. But when Tamara was 11, her parents died in a car accident on I-85. One Tuesday, they were alive, laughing, making plans for Tamara's birthday party that weekend. By Friday, they were gone. And by the following Monday, the Bradford family, Vanessa, and her husband, Marcus, showed up at Tamara's house with papers saying her parents owed them money. A lot of money. They said Tamara's daddy had taken out loans, used the family properties as collateral, and now that he was dead, the Bradfords were calling in the debt. 11-year-old Tamara didn't understand any of it. She just knew that strangers were taking her house, her clothes, her mama's jewelry, everything. She remembered standing on the front steps of her family's house in Cascade Heights, watching movers carry out furniture that had been in her family for generations, while Vanessa supervised with a smile on her face. That was 20 years ago, and Tamara spent every single day since then planning her revenge. Now, I know what you're thinking. How did she go from a broke orphan to buying back her family's estate? Hold on, because that part's coming. But first, let me tell you about the wedding, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. Simone came down the stairs in a wedding dress that probably cost more than most people make in a year. White lace, long train, the whole thing. She looked like she stepped out of a magazine. But here's the thing that made Tamara's blood boil. That necklace Simone was wearing? The sapphire one that caught the light just right? That was Tamara's grandmother's necklace. The one her grandmother wore to church every Sunday. The one she let little Tamara try on while telling her stories about strong black women who built kingdoms out of nothing. Vanessa had stolen it 20 years ago, along with everything else, and now Simone was wearing it like it was just another accessory she picked up at the mall. "Tamara!" Simone's voice cut through her thoughts. "Why are you just standing there? I need my champagne." In the crystal glasses, not the regular ones. And make it cold. Jerome looked at Tamara with these dead eyes. You heard her. And hurry up. We got people coming over to see the dress. Tamara's hands shook as she walked to the kitchen. But not from fear. From the effort it took not to smile. Because in 3 days all of this was gonna come crashing down. Let me back up and tell you how Tamara even got here. After the Bradfords took everything, Tamara ended up in foster care. Bounced around from house to house until she aged out at 18. She worked 3 jobs, put herself through community college, then transferred to Georgia State. But the whole time she was studying. Not just books, she was studying the Bradfords. Learning how they operated, who they did business with, and where their money came from. And she found out something interesting. Those loans they said her daddy took out? Fake. Completely made up. The Bradfords had forged documents, bribed officials, and straight up lied to steal the Hayes family properties. Then they used those properties as collateral to build their own little empire. Everything the Bradfords had, the house in Buckhead, the investment properties, the cars, the country club memberships, all of it was built on what they stole from Tamara's family. When Tamara was 25, her grandfather's lawyer finally tracked her down. Turned out, her grandfather had set up a trust fund that the Bradfords couldn't touch. And when Tamara turned 25, she inherited everything. Not just her family's original money, but investments her grandfather had made in tech companies, real estate developments, venture capital funds, stuff that had been growing for decades. The lawyer told her the number, and Tamara had to sit down because she thought she was going to faint. $8 billion. That's billion with a B. Tamara went from working 2 jobs and living in a studio apartment in College Park to having more money than she could spend in 10 lifetimes. But she didn't tell anybody. She kept working, kept living small, kept pretending to be regular. Because she had a plan. Y'all still with me? Because this is where it gets good. If you're loving this story, go ahead and leave a comment saying, I'm here for it. Let me know you're locked in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and share this video. Tamara met Jerome at a restaurant where she was waitressing. He came in with his boys, acting like he was somebody important, talking loudly about business deals and investments. She recognized him immediately. He'd grown up since she last saw him. He was only 14 when his parents stole her family's house. But she knew exactly who he was. And she knew his mama had sent him there. See, Vanessa had figured out who Tamara was. Did her research and found out about the Hayes Family Trust Fund. She thought that if Jerome married Tamara, they could get access to that money. What Vanessa didn't know was that the trust fund was locked up tight. No husband, no wife, nobody could touch it except Tamara. So Tamara played along. Let Jerome think he was charming her, wooing her, making her fall in love. They dated for 6 months. He proposed at a fancy restaurant in Midtown, and Tamara said yes, even though she wanted to throw the ring in his face. They got married at the courthouse. Jerome said they should save money for a house. But really, his mama didn't want to waste money on a big wedding for someone they planned to use and discard. For 3 years, Tamara played the role. The sweet, naive wife who didn't anything about money or business. Who believed Jerome when he said he was working late. Who smiled when Vanessa made little comments about how Tamara wasn't sophisticated enough for their family. And the whole time, Tamara was buying up everything the Bradfords owned. Every property they had a mortgage on. Tamara bought the debt from the banks. Every business loan, Tamara bought it. Every credit card, every country club membership, every little piece of leverage they had, Tamara bought it all through shell companies that they'd never be able to trace back to her. By the time Tamara got pregnant, she owned everything the Bradford family had their name on, including the house in Buckhead. Her family's house. The one Vanessa stole 20 years ago. But Jerome didn't know that. His mama didn't know that. Nobody knew that. When Tamara told Jerome she was pregnant, his face went cold. Just cold. That baby ain't mine, he said, not even looking at her. Jerome, we're married. We live together. How is it not yours? Because I know what you are, he said, and Tamara could hear his mama's words coming out of his mouth. You've probably been running around, trying to trap me. That's when Simone moved in. Jerome had been cheating with her for 2 years. since before Tamara got pregnant. But now he made it official. Moved his mistress into the house and told Tamara she could either leave or work as a maid until after the wedding. "You can stay in the help's quarters," Vanessa had said, smiling that cruel smile. "Earn your keep. And maybe after Jerome's married to someone worthy, we'll give you a reference for your next housekeeping job." So Tamara said yes. Moved into the tiny room off the kitchen. Started scrubbing and folding laundry and serving Simone breakfast in bed. And every single day she got closer to Saturday. The wedding was planned for Saturday morning at 10 o'clock in the garden. The same garden where Tamara used to play as a child. Where her grandmother had planted rose bushes that were still growing, still blooming, still beautiful after all these years. Tamara spent Thursday and Friday setting up chairs, hanging decorations, and arranging flowers. Her feet were swollen, her back ached, and the baby was sitting heavy and low. But she smiled through it all, because she knew what Saturday would bring. Friday night, Simone had her bridesmaids over. They stayed up late, drinking wine, laughing, talking about how Simone had won, and how Tamara was just a stepping stone to Jerome's real happiness. Tamara served them snacks, refilled their glasses, and acted like she couldn't hear every word. One of the bridesmaids, a girl named Ashley who used to go to church with Tamara's family, actually looked uncomfortable. Like maybe she recognized Tamara, maybe she remembered, but she didn't say anything. Just sipped her wine and looked away when Tamara walked past. Saturday morning came with perfect weather. Sunny, warm, not too hot. The kind of day people pay extra for when they're planning weddings. Guests started arriving at 9:30, and Tamara recognized every single face. People who knew her parents. People who'd promised to look after her after the accident. People who'd turned away when the Bradfords took everything. Mrs. Patterson from her parents' church. Mr. Johnso, who used to be her daddy's business partner. The Williams family, Ly who lived next door when Tamara was growing up. All of them dressed up, smiling, drinking champagne, acting like they didn't remember the little girl whose life got destroyed in this very house. Vanessa had done it on purpose. Invited all these people so they could see Tamara serving drinks in a maid's uniform while Jerome married someone else. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel and turn on notifications because this story is getting interesting. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love to connect with our viewers. The ceremony started right at 10 o'clock. Simone walked down the aisle with that stolen necklace, carrying flowers that Tamara had arranged with her own hands. Jerome stood at the altar looking uncomfortable, like maybe part of him knew this was wrong. The preacher started talking about love and commitment, and Tamara wanted to laugh at the irony. But she didn't. She just waited. At exactly 10:01 a.m., a man in a dark suit walked into the garden. The music was still playing. Simone was halfway down the aisle. Guests were taking pictures. And this man walked right up to Jerome and Vanessa and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Jerome Bradford, Vanessa Bradford, you're being served with eviction notices. This property has been sold to Hayes Holdings LLC. You have 2 hours to remove your personal belongings before law enforcement arrives." The music stopped. Simone froze mid-step. Jerome's face went from confused to pale to angry in about 3 seconds. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, snatching the papers. "Who are you? This is a private event." Vanessa pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with rage. "This is a mistake. We own this property. We've owned it for 20 years. "Not anymore," the man said calmly. "As of 3 weeks ago, this property and all associated Bradford assets have been acquired by Hayes Holdings LLC. The documents are in order. You have 2 hours. That's when Tamara stepped forward. She'd been standing by the kitchen door in her maid's uniform, watching everything. Now she walked slowly into the garden, her pregnant belly leading the way. Every eye turned to her. Jerome saw her first. He actually laughed, this desperate, disbelieving sound. "Tamara, what did you do? Did you hire these people? You think this is funny?" Tamara stopped at the edge of the garden, the same spot where she'd stood 20 years ago, watching her life get stolen. She looked at Jerome, at Vanessa. Simone was standing there with her grandmother's necklace. and she smiled. Hayes Holdings LLC is my company, she said, her voice carrying across the silent garden. I bought this house, my family's house that your mama stole 3 weeks ago, along with every property you own, every business loan, every investment account, every single thing your family built on what you stole from mine. The silence was so complete you could hear birds singing in the trees. You've been living in my house, Tamara continued, sleeping in my bed, planning your wedding in my garden. And I let you treat me like dirt because I wanted you to know, I wanted all of you to know, what it feels like when everything you think you have disappears in one day. Vanessa lunged at Tamara, but 2 security guards appeared out of nowhere and held her back. You're lying, Vanessa screamed. You don't have any money. You ain't nothing. You can't do this. Tamara pulled out her phone and held it up so everyone could see the screen. Her bank account balance was right there. 8,400 million and some change. Somebody in the crowd gasped. Somebody else took out their phone and started recording. 20 years ago, Tamara said, her voice steady even though her heart was pounding. Your family came to my house and took everything. You forged documents, bribed officials, and lied to steal from an 11-year-old orphan. Then you built your whole empire on what you stole from me. She turned to address the crowd. Most of y'all knew my parents. Some of y'all promised to look after me when they died. But when the Bradfords came for everything, y'all looked the other way. Let it happen. Some of y'all even helped. Mrs. Patterson had tears running down her face. Mr. Johnson was staring at the ground. I married Jerome because I wanted to see if anybody in this family had a soul, Tamara continued. But his mama had already planned the whole thing. She knew who I was, knew about my inheritance, and sent Jerome to get it. When that didn't work, when she found out she couldn't touch my money, she told him to find someone else. Someone whose money was easier to access. She looked at Simone, who was backing away slowly, her wedding dress dragging in the dirt. For 4 months I cleaned toilets in my own house. I served y'all breakfast in my own kitchen. I watched you wear my grandmother's jewelry like it was yours. And I smiled through all of it because I knew this day was coming. Jerome fell to his knees in the grass. Tamara, please, we can talk about this. I made mistakes, but... You got 2 hours, Tamara said. After that, security removes you. And just so you know, I already called every news station in Atlanta. By noon, everybody's gonna know exactly how the Bradford family built their empire. On lies, fraud, and stolen property. Right on cue, news vans started pulling up to the house. Vanessa collapsed right there in the grass. One of her friends rushed over to help her up, but Vanessa just kept saying no, no, no over and over. Simone was crying, her mascara running down her face, her wedding dress covered in dirt and grass stains. And Jerome just stayed on his knees, staring at Tamara like he was seeing her for the first time. The guests scattered like roaches when you turn on the light. Within 20 minutes, the garden was empty except for the Bradfords, the security guards, and abandoned wedding decorations that would never be used. Tamara stood in the middle of her reclaimed property and felt her daughter kick. This is for you, she whispered, one hand on her belly. So you never have to wonder if you're worth something. So you know your mama didn't let nobody break her. Y'all thought that was the end? Nah. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. 3 months later, Tamara was sitting in the nursery of her family's house. Her house, rocking her baby girl, Grace. The Bradfords were gone. Broke, exposed, destroyed. Jerome was working a regular job in another state. Vanessa had lost everything. Her house, her status, her reputation. Simone moved back in with her parents, and the engagement ring Jerome gave her turned out to be bought with credit he couldn't pay back. But Tamara? She turned the west wing of her house into a shelter for women leaving bad situations. Women who'd been underestimated, abused, told they were nothing. She'd started a foundation called the Grace Hayes Foundation, named after her daughter and her grandmother. It provided legal help, job training, and housing for women rebuilding their lives. 12 women and their kids were living in her house right now, getting back on their feet, learning their worth. One of them, A young girl named Keisha who'd left her abusive boyfriend with nothing but her 2-year-old son, knocked on the nursery door. "Ms. Tamara? I just got the job. The one your foundation helped me apply for. I start Monday." Tamara smiled. "That's amazing, Keisha. I'm proud of you." Keisha sat down, her son playing quietly on the floor. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever regret it? Making them suffer like that? Being so public about it?" Tamara looked down at baby Grace, sleeping peacefully in her arms. "If I'd done it quietly," she said, "people would have said I was bitter, that I couldn't let go. But by doing it publicly, I made sure everybody knew exactly what they did. And now there's a law being passed, the Hayes Act, that protects orphaned kids from what happened to me." She looked at Keisha. "Your ex used to tell you that you couldn't make it without him, right?" Keisha nodded, tears in her eyes. "Now you got a job, your own apartment starting next month, and your son's in a good daycare. When he sees you thriving, I want you to make sure he knows he was wrong about you. Make him live with that." Keisha smiled and wiped her eyes. "Yes, ma'am." After she left, Tamara stood at the nursery window, watching the sun set over the garden where a wedding had ended, and her new life had begun. Her lawyer had called earlier with news. Jerome was trying to get visitation rights with Grace. Tamara's response had been simple. "He had 9 months to be a father. He chose to call my baby illegitimate and make me clean his mistress's bathroom. The answer is no." The Hayes family house was restored to its former glory. Every room held memories now, not just of what was stolen, but of what was reclaimed. Tamara had written a letter to Grack to be opened on her 18th birthday. It explained everything: the betrayal, the revenge, the restoration. The last paragraph read, "Your father's family tried to make me believe I was worthless. They were wrong. I let them believe their lies long enough to document their cruelty and engineer their destruction. I tell you this not to teach you revenge, but to teach you that the most dangerous person in any room is the one everyone underestimates. You come from women who turned devastation into determination. Never forget that." As Grace slept in her arms, Tamara thought about everything she'd accomplished. Not just getting revenge, but creating something bigger than herself. A legacy that would help other women reclaim their power. The Bradford family was devastated and would stay devastated. Their name was synonymous with fraud. Their empire was gone. But Tamara Hayes had risen from the ashes stronger than ever. She'd bought back more than just property. She'd bought back dignity, legacy, and justice. And she taught the world that underestimating a black woman is the most expensive mistake anyone can make. 3 years later, on Grace's 3rd birthday, Tamara received a letter. It was from Jerome. He'd found out where she lived, not hard since the Hayes estate was famous now, featured in magazines as both a historic home and a shelter for women in need. The letter was long and rambling, full of apologies and regrets and claims that he'd changed. But the last line made Tamara's blood run cold. "I've been talking to a lawyer about my parental rights. I know you think I don't deserve to be in Grace's life, but she deserves to know her father. I'll see you in court." Tamara set the letter down, her hands shaking. After everything, after the exposure, the devastation, the public humiliation, Jerome really thought he could come back and claim her daughter? She picked up her phone and called her lawyer. "We got a problem," she said. And as she looked at Grace playing with her toys, completely innocent and unaware of the storm that was coming, Tamara made a decision. If Jerome wanted a war, she'd give him one. Because some battles aren't over just because you won once. Some battles last a lifetime. What will Tamara do when Jerome tries to take her daughter? Will the court side with a father who abandoned his pregnant wife? And what secrets about the Bradford family is Tamara still holding that could destroy Jerome completely? Drop a comment and let me know what you think Tamara should do. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because this story might not be over